Hit this when it's green.
Always funny.
Brenda, how are we doing on a quorum?
Okay, I think we're ready. Sorry about that. We do have a quorum.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. All right. Welcome everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. And before I have Brenda take roll, I'll just acknowledge we have our city attorney Tamara Niles filling in tonight. So welcome to her as well. And then Brenda, if you would take the roll, I'd appreciate it.
Board Member Freeman.
Present.
Board Member Jolie.
Present.
Board Member Kelly.
Here.
Board Member Mercier.
Present.
Board Member Ridley.
Present.
Councilmember Russell. Present. Councilmember Ward.
Present.
Mayor Sierra.
Present.
Vice Chair Boreski. Chair Moore.
Present. Wonderful. And did Brenda, I'm sorry, was Alexa not in attendance?
No, she is. I think maybe she just didn't. She said here.
I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I couldn't hear it on my end. With that, I'll move to item 3 and welcome new board members. I thought I was term limited, but apparently I got one more left. So I am back for a final tour. And then I'd like to welcome Alexa Kelly as our newest board member or alternate board member. Fill in this, joining us. So welcome, Alexa. Glad to have you. Next up, agenda item 4, just approval of the meeting minutes from January 14th. If I could get a motion.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
All right. Any changes, edits, questions? All right. All in favor of the last minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed? All right. Motion carries. We're off to a good start. Public forum. Brenda, do we have anyone from the public that wishes to address us tonight?
We do not.
Okay. Moving on to item 6A, amendment to state revolving fund leveraged water loan. And Sarah, I believe I'm turning it over to you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So we have 2 amendments tonight for our loan agreements, one for our state revolving fund loan, the other one for WIFIA. So we'll start with the state revolving fund loan. So just as a little bit of background, this loan was the $40 million that we closed on last year through 2 different loan mechanisms. One is the bipartisan infrastructure bill, or the bill that was signed in November of 2021. That was federal legislation to invest more than $50 billion over the next 5 years in water infrastructure programs with an emphasis on lead. And then the other one is the drinking water revolving fund loan. So that is administered through Colorado Water Resource Power Development Authority. And a portion of that 40 million came from that DWRF loan. So our two loans were the Bill Direct loan, which was 17.5 million. And as we got that loan, immediately 10 million of that was principal forgiveness. And then the leveraged loan, which is the topic for tonight's amendment, was the $23 million, which was the direct loan from the state. So the proposed loan amendment, so as we were running through our inventory and getting initial reports on the inventory of lead, we had initially estimated that this program would be upwards of $40 million. Since we've been refining the various zones that we've been in and potholing, we believe that program cost will actually be around $30 million, so leaving us $10 million to invest into the distribution system. And as we've been doing lead line replacements in the north central zone, which is the light purple in the northeast-ish side of the city, where there's a vertical line through the map there. That's where we've been focusing all of our lead replacement currently. And as we've been going through that, we have had seen some risks in our distribution system that we'd like to address. And the way to do that is for insertion valves. So there's areas in the system, and these are all shown on the map on the right, of where we'd like to place additional valves in the system to help control the system should there be any emergencies, or to shut down certain mains if needed during the lead replacement program, or into the future. So these would be assets that we would have and could use to control the system long into the future. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is we've identified line replacements that we would like to include as a part of this amendment, because we feel like they're the highest priority. So one is the Clarkson line, and that is the dark blue in that first zone, the north central zone that we are currently replacing lead lines in. The other is Union Avenue. That we discussed that project a couple years ago now, but it has been fully designed. It's a replacement down in the south west corner of the city, where there were frequent breaks, and we got a contractor bid on that. It was higher than we anticipated, so we delayed construction. But now with these funds potentially available, we'd like to use those funds for that loan as well. And then after near the end of the program, once we fully defined how many lead service lines need to be replaced and have certainty on that, there's an alternate project, which is to connect the Allen Water Treatment Plant directly to the pressure zone, or zone 2 in the distribution system. So that is the smaller line in the yellow. It's on the very south side of the map. So that would just be a pipe that connects directly there. It's not something we've designed at this point, but it's something that we have down the road that we would like to do to the distribution system. So we asked the state to evaluate these projects, take a look at where we would like to put insertion valves in the distribution system, and they came back and said, yes, this loan can be used to do that. So that's a piece of the amendment tonight. The other piece is to add authorized officers to this loan. Currently, there's a list of city employees in there. I think they pulled from the Public Works loan that, the SRF loan that Public Works did a couple years ago. And so they failed to put in Peter or myself in as authorized officers. So this would just be an amendment to add us in there and then remove the two Public Works representatives. And with that, I'll open it up with any questions.
Any questions for Sarah?
I have a question. You already kind of answered it, but did they just forget to put you in? I mean, did Public Works really have anything to do with this loan?
Public Works did not have anything to do with this loan. I think it was just a holdover. They had gone through it with Public Works the year before, and they pulled in, they also pulled in from finance, Kevin Ingalls and Christine Hart, which were leaving in as authorized officers. So I think it was just they just didn't quite get us in there.
Okay. So, I mean, are you actually replacing the two people from Public Works, or is
Yes.
okay.
Yes, we would be.
Thank you.
Yep.
I got one question. So the red are the valves that are going to be inserted? Is that correct?
Correct. Sorry. The valves in blue are required. Those would be inserted as we move to those zones.
Okay.
The red, we would, one, evaluate the costs of the program as we're moving through and further replacing lead lines. They're kind of nice to haves is what we've identified currently, but we would anticipate that we would do those if the funds are available.
Does this increase the timeline of the project?
It does not.
Okay, so it'd be done as work is being
Yep.
completed.
So currently, our contractor, and so our contractor AGL, who's doing all the lead line replacements, we've added this to their contract as well, the insertion valves. So our next zone that we're moving to is the light green, and they will go in and install those insertion valves prior to any lead replacement.
Any further questions of Sarah? All right. Could I get a motion for item 6A as written?
I move. Second.
Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, moving on to 6B.
Okay, so this is the second loan agreement amendment of the night. This is for the WIFIA water loan agreement. So as a reminder, the WIFIA loan was for $60.5 million from the Water Infrastructure Financing and Innovation Act. We closed on the sewer loan on April 26, 2022, and we closed on the water fund loan on May 26, 2022. The water loan agreement was for $38.4 million, and that included 8 work packages that identified needs at the plant, the advanced metering infrastructure project, operations center improvements, the space improvements we'll actually be talking about later tonight. That was all included in that original agreement. But we have identified a project that we'd like to add. We also, on that, one important note is the substantial completion date was when we had to have projects at least initiated, is December 30th, 2027. So as a part of the loan amendment that we'd like to make, we'd like to add the Denver Water Interconnect project. So at the time that the WIFIA loan was in negotiation, we did not have an agreement with Denver Water for emergency interconnects. So this project was not identified as a WIFIA project. However, since then, because it relates to the reliability of the system and the resiliency at the Allen Water Treatment Plant, meaning it gives us a backup supply should anything catastrophic happen, we negotiated with the EPA to add this project to the WIFIA loan agreement. So what this project is 2 locations. They're kind of shown on the right here, at Clarkson and Oxford, and then at Washington, and I actually don't know what that, is that Shenango? I can't remember, I can't see that. Oh, Clarkson and Shenango. So where we would connect our system to Denver Water's system. Per their agreement, we are 95% through design. I think Denver Water currently has our design drawings and is reviewing them. We anticipate that the budget for this project is around $3 million. And again, we would put it into the WIFIA loan agreement. The other thing that we are asking for an amendment is to extend the development default date. So WIFIA now, their current process when they do new loans is to provide 2 years from that substantial completion date for you to initiate projects. We only had 1 year in our agreement, so we just asked to extend it out, giving us that flexibility to initiate projects up through December 30th, 2029. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Any questions for Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah, Cammie here had a question. Just sort of seeing, and I guess maybe anywhere that we have federal funds, loans, things tied to the federal government, I'm just curious, do we have any concerns with kind of the state of the federal government and concerns that funds are not going to be available? What are the guarantees? And what are our risks if we follow through with projects and then monies are not available? Are you guys having that discussion right now?
Yes, I've had that discussion with both the EPA for the WIFIA loan and then also with the state for the SRF loan. For the state, they already have those funds in place. They've already been committed through our loan agreement that they come to us, as we submit our invoices for repayment. So the state has had zero issue. And in fact, I submitted a reimbursement request to them last Monday when I think the executive order, if that was the date that that information broke, and there was no issue in getting that back. WIFIA is the same. They aren't concerned at this point that they would not have those funds available. We also have been accruing basically a WIFIA balance because we signed our agreement almost 3 years ago now, that those funds have been set aside and we're guaranteed those funds. So we have no concern at the moment.
So just follow up. So I'm not exactly sure how WIFIA works, but so has the state actually received those funds from the federal government or?
For the SRF loan, yes, the state has already received those funds from the federal government.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is Councilmember Russell. So the WIFIA funds, do they come to us directly from the federal government?
They
or
do.
From EPA? So everything that we've already committed to, that we've started work on, we probably won't have a problem with that.
Right.
But we don't know for sure that the next time we go out for a draw that we would be able to get that?
So
or-
I also submitted a draw from them last week, and that was no issue. We've already received payment as well from them. And they, I asked them that last week, and they aren't concerned about those funds being
Okay.
available.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? All right, could I get a motion on item 6B as written?
I move to approve 6B as written. Second.
Great. Any further discussion? Rita and Cammie, thank you for your questions. That's what I wanted to ask as well. Seems like trying to anticipate what kind of troubles we might have in these projects is certainly prudent. Anyway, any further discussion, questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to 6C, still with Sarah.
You guys get a lot of me tonight. All right, so this item is an amendment to the IGA with the Englewood School District. So this amendment, from my understanding, this was done in 2020, it's before my time, was between the city and the school district for understanding on joint use of district and city facilities for the benefit of the community. The reason that you're seeing this tonight, you wouldn't have seen it in 2020 because it had nothing to do with the water system, but the reason you're seeing it tonight is that we are proposing to place two data network collectors on two schools within the Englewood School District. So this is in relation to our advanced metering infrastructure project. So we are replacing all the outdated metering infrastructure. That's 10,094 total meters. About 7,500 of those will be a full replacement. 2,600 of those are retrofitted. And this is, an industry standard meter project at this point where most cities have implemented this technology. We are catching up, modernizing our metering program in order to do that. And so these meters have the ability to be read remotely. So currently, we have installed 7 of these network data collectors. They're all located on city facilities. And then we need 2 more to get what we're hoping to be full coverage of the city to collect information, data or meter reads from the meters that have been installed. So those locations are at the Charles Hay Elementary School and Englewood High School. This is the official name, so we're recommending installation of the R900 Gateway version 4 fixed network data collectors. They're basically an antenna that's going to go on the top or on the roof of the 2 schools. But we do need an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with Englewood School District in order to do that. Utilities has obviously taken responsibility for maintenance of those antenna, any damage that may occur by putting those on the roof, that we would be responsible for that. And the school district has agreed to it. So, did I miss anything, Ryan? No. No, okay. So I'll open it up for some questions.
Anything for Sarah?
I do have one question, Councilmember Russell. The question is, did they have to go out and seek I mean, this is just an addition to an intergovernmental agreement. Does the school already know what these are? I mean, this is obviously different than and there was no questions at all.
So they did, ask what they look like, how big they were. We provided pictures, dimensions. I think it's actually it will be included in the amendment, what they look like, how they will be installed on their roofs.
Okay.
Ryan, did you have any other conversation with them?
So we met with the school district on 2 different occasions to go look at the sites and then look at how we would do installations on their buildings. So they had questions at that time. And then like Sarah said, as we have gone through the getting the agreement amended, they had some questions that we've answered through that process as well.
Okay, but no questions about radio frequency?
No, none of the questions were around the radio frequency. They have other equipment that operates in a similar 900 megahertz communication frequency on their buildings already.
Okay,
And so I think that they were fairly comfortable with what we were doing.
okay, thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
So, thank you, thank you. I was wondering, so even though the school didn't have concerns, was that, so you're saying they already have equipment, so they're over 900?
So they have radio communication stuff on top of their schools already. Their security system communicates that way, is my understanding. I'm not an expert on their systems, but they do have they have other antennas and communication equipment that's very similar to this already installed on the school buildings.
I personally was wondering, what does IGA stands for?
That's intergovernmental agreement.
And this intergovernmental agreement, is this through federal?
So this is just an agreement between the city of Englewood and the Englewood School District.
So who sets the IGA?
It's a negotiation between those 2 parties. So, so the city of Englewood and the school district have negotiated the terms of the original IGA, and then this is a first amendment to that IGA.
So that's specific for the city of Englewood. So there is no IGA somewhere else existing in another state or city or county or anything like that?
I'm going to turn to Tamara for official definition.
Sure, I'm happy to take that one. Tamara Niles, City Attorney. IGA is a term commonly used for different governmental entities when they enter into contracts with each other. By city charter, we're required to authorize intergovernmental agreements or contracts between 2 governmental entities by ordinance. So this would be your board looking at this section of the proposed IGA and then making a recommendation to City Council. But it's very common in other states. I know I was a city attorney in Kansas, and we use that same terminology, an IGA, when we would have a contract with another city or with the state. So it is common, but but this one is only between the school district and the city. And we probably authorize 20 IGAs a year with the city as a party, maybe more, maybe less, but it's quite a few. And my office generally drafts them.
Thank you. And so this conversation, these agreements between the city, the water and the school is something that per se the principal make that decision, but is not shared by the parents, correct?
I believe it was negotiated with the superintendent of the school district.
And nobody concerned about the frequencies that they're being shared or added to the situation.
So I'll answer that question to the best of my ability. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a radio frequency expert, but so what these units do is, our water meters send out a signal. These data collectors receive that signal, whether the data collector's on the frequency is there, whether the data collector's on the school building or not. This isn't something that concentrates or, data collector sounds like collecting, and it does collect, but it's only what's already there. And then it uses a cell phone signal to send that information to the cloud that then comes back to the city.
I'm just trying, and I appreciate you explaining that, because since, so the actual picture of that pyramid with the little antenna, that's the device. It goes around the meter, or it goes on the roof?
So that sits on the roof, and it has the electrical box or the data collector unit's not on that. That's the rack that will sit on the roof, and then the data collector will be mounted to that rack.
Got it. Okay, thanks for explaining that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a question real quick, to be honest. It is only designed then through program to only collect certain kind of data?
So our water meters send out reading data. So they have, you can add other data to it related to the water system. You could add water temperature if we were interested in collecting that. You could add pressure readings if we were interested in collecting that. And then you could also add, the meters have the ability to listen to water service lines to hear noise, which could indicate a possible leak in the system. The system that we're installing right now only is collecting meter reads and then sending meter read data only. There's no customer information that's tied to the meter that's in the pit. It's only at the number of the reading of the water that's been used, and and is on the frequency that the meter reports out.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask another question. So it's not necessarily concentrated at that point. At that point, it's just picking up the signal that's there and sending it on.
That's correct.
And did the superintendent make this decision? Doesn't the school board have to make those decisions?
I would assume the school board would be required to authorize it, but it was negotiated with the superintendent, much like we as staff negotiated it on our end, and then we're bringing it to this body and then city council for approval.
Okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate that.
All right. Could I don't think I did a motion yet for 6C. Assuming that's correct, can I get a motion for 6C?
I move to approve.
As written.
Second.
Go ahead. I believe I have a first and a second on that. So with that, any further discussion? Right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to 6D.
I'm up again, yes. All right. So this item is, it's essentially a combination of two projects that we're bringing as one project because it's the same contractor that's going to do it. So we have two CMGC agreements. So that's construction manager, general contractor agreements for two projects that we're delivering this year. So that delivery method, we established as what we'd like to do to bring certain projects forward. So that gets a contractor on board during the design phase. So we established a professional services agreement with, and the contractor is PCL, back in 2024, April 2024, during the design phase of these two projects. So the reason we did that is because we wanted the contractor available for design questions, constructability questions, and then really to get some evaluation of costs as we were going through the design and provide us cost certainty once we got to the point of initiating construction. So these two items tonight are early procurement packages for these construction projects to happen this year. So those two construction projects are, the first one is the Phase 2 space improvements. So that is to house all utilities staff in permanent spaces. Currently, right now, we're using 2 temporary office trailers on site to house a certain number of staff, both at the service center and then at the Allen Water Treatment site. So in the top right corner, you can see the 2 temporary office trailers. That's where the distribution and collection staff is held. And a part of this project would be to remodel and expand Building 11 out at the service center. The other portion of this project is to construct the Phase 2 office building, which is shown in the bottom picture, at the bottom of that picture, which would house the engineering staff, environmental compliance, business solutions staff of utilities. So currently, engineering and environmental compliance staff are also in a temporary trailer at the Allen Water Treatment Plant site. The second project, and that's also shown on the bottom picture, will occur in the existing dewatering building. So that is our solids handling improvement project. That's to replace aging infrastructure. So we've talked about this project a couple times where it's there was a belt filter press in use to remove solids from the south reservoir. It's out of date. It can't handle the solids generation from the plant currently, so we need to replace those assets. We also believe that this will address some taste and odor compounds. The water, or the south reservoir and north reservoir at the plant are hydraulically connected, so water from the south reservoir flows into the north reservoir and then goes back into the treatment plant, gets treated, and we believe that taste and odor compounds are affecting the drinking water at that point. So this project would replace that aging infrastructure with a centrifuge and the equipment to keep up with the solid generation in the south reservoir. We ordered last year the centrifuge. It was a very long lead item. I think we purchased that back in December of 2023, and it is going to be delivered to our site this summer, at which point we would have PCL, our contractor, install that with all the components necessary as a part of that design. So how we are proposing to deliver this project is, again, under a CMGC agreement. So once the agreement is in place, we then add on GMPs, so that's guaranteed maximum price work packages. So there's 2 that were under consideration tonight. There's early procurement for the solids handling project. So that includes a conveyor belt. Actually, I have a list on the next slide, so I'll get there. And then for the space improvements project, early procurement of a fabricated steel building. It will also lock in the steel prices for this project. And then this is with PCL Construction. Again, we have a professional services agreement in place with them currently. They've reviewed these designs. They've evaluated these early procurement pieces and have said, these are the items that we think you need to purchase in advance of construction to maintain schedule. So for the space improvements project, we believe there'll be 5 GMP packages. So again, this is the first one. We would bring 2 through 5 in the coming months. Those would include construction of the Allen Water Treatment Plant building. Because we're adding a building to that site, we also need to upgrade some of the electrical equipment at the Allen Water Treatment Plant. So that's the patent number 3, GMP number 3. And then construction for GMP4 at the service center would be that fourth package. And then finally, because we are adding a building, we are removing some storage space that's currently at the Allen Water Treatment Plant. So we would add that final GMP to create some storage for chemicals on site. So for consideration tonight, it is the raw materials, so the steel, and then the manufacturing for that pre-manufactured building, as well as some allowances, the bonds, the CMGC fee, all of those items that have been negotiated with the contractor for a total of $575,506. And as a part of GMP1 for the solids handling package, again, it's early procurement. The second GMP will come at a later date once design is fully finalized and we have agreed on those costs. But the two early procurement items would be the screwed conveyor. So this is the conveyor belt that would take solids from the centrifuge and to the drying bed. And then there's some electrical components for the control system that we would install as a part of this project that were identified as needs for early procurement. And so that total is $279,131. So our recommendation would be to enter into the CMGC agreements with PCL for each of those dollars amounts, GMP1 for the space improvement project and GMP1 for the solids handling project. We would then bring future GMPs at meetings this spring. So the total authorization for PCL would be $854,637. I'll note on the solicitation of PCL. So SPR also uses PCL for their construction projects. We did a competitive solicitation for the first phase of the office space improvements. That was the addition of offices at the treatment plant and then a new conference room. We competitively solicited for that. PCL was the choice of the review panel. And so we contracted with them. We have the ability to then to renew their contract. So that's essentially what we're doing. So within the rules of procurement that we've established with the city is we can renew up to 4 times. So this would be a second renewal with PCL. And then if, down the road, a few years from now, we had other construction projects that we had run out of renewals with PCL, we would then solicit at that point. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
I have a couple questions. These are two seemingly very different projects. Why are we using the same contractor for both projects?
Sure. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One, they're both fairly small projects. They're located, at least outside of the service center, the office building and then the solids handling are located right next to each other on the treatment plant site. So for safety reasons, we would like to have one contractor on site. Actually, at SPR, they've had some concerns about safety with multiple contracts on site. And that was one of the reasons they went to exclusively working with PCL during this timeframe to only have the one contractor on site and make sure that they could coordinate and have the appropriate people available for those construction projects. So, and then for the Allen Water Treatment Plant site, it looks like we lost the presentation. But going back to that picture, they are right next to each other. There's the manual transfer switch project will also have impacts to the solids handling building. So that schedule needs to be coordinated.
Okay, a somewhat related question. You mentioned that these didn't go out to bid because we have an existing contract with PCL. Does the same reasoning apply there? PCL is familiar with the site, they're familiar with construction, our safety policies. So it was just more efficient overall to continue using them?
Correct, and it provides continuity between the first phase of the space improvements project to the second phase. So exactly right, they're familiar with our process.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to open it up on.
Any further questions for Sarah?
I had a question. So you mentioned potentially the solids handling improvements project, addressing taste and odor issues. How are we capturing data that that's actually happening with all of the different projects? I mean, I understand aging infrastructure, things need to be done. I understand that piece of it. What I'm wondering is and this is really any decisions that we're kind of making as a body here to move things forward to the council. How are we collecting data that we're actually having real impacts on taste and odor issues with our water? Because, it's a big issue for me.
Yep.
I know it's a big issue for other community members. So just wondering how we're tracking that from a data perspective instead of asking people, what do you think of
Sure.
it? Because everybody has a different feeling about what their water should taste and smell like, or not smell like. So how are we actually collecting actual data to say that we're improving the water system?
Sure. So we collect data daily at the water treatment plant related to hardness. The taste and odor compounds are tested at, these reservoirs. We track that. We've graphed it. We're taking, a very close look at it. We're actually preparing a presentation in March. I think we're going to bring it in March, where we will show some of those improvements because there's been operational changes at the plant, enhancements of how we use chemicals and things to address these concerns. So we do have the data. We are preparing it to then bring it to this board and then also present that to council as a study session to show that certain things that we are doing are making incremental improvements. And then we want to continue to track that as we have these larger projects. And Josh can add.
And I appreciate that. Just one more thing, presentation to the board I think is great, and then, the council as well. But how is that also being communicated to our community about all the work that's being done? Because I know it's hard work and it's a lot of money. So how are we communicating instead of just like the water quality report, which I know nobody looks at, maybe a couple people look at, which I think is unfortunate.
You'll be surprised.
Well, no, I think more people need to look at it, honestly. But I'm just wondering how it's communicated to the community.
So we have been talking about that with communications department. We are currently working through our Flow It Forward campaign, which has a lot of information on the website. We are also, I saw a draft of it a few weeks ago. We have a series of videos that will come out that's talking about just that, like what it is that we are doing to address the issues, how we are investing in capital at the water treatment plant and within the distribution system. So that'll be a social media campaign. There'll be other information coming out we're going to try and hit every avenue, the magazine, direct mail, that kind of thing that really does try and communicate all of the good things that we're doing, so.
And I can speak to that too. As far as the question, it's a good question because we ask that question a lot. How do we communicate all this good work we're doing? Because data and taste, it's kind of hard to have data on taste and odor. But there are ways to do that. We're working on that. I just saw today the actual presentation that we hope to be presenting to you all next month or the month after about all the differences we're making. As far as how we can actually collect that data, there is things that we can pull for and test for. And as far as like that sludge that we're removing, there's things that exist in that sludge that they're okay to drink, they're safe to drink, they're naturally occurring, but they have a smell and a taste and odor impact, and we can test for those, and we have been testing for those. And as we pull out that sludge, we can test and see how the reduction of those compounds is being actualized. Those compounds are called geosmin and MIB, naturally occurring things that smell just kind of musty smell. Sometimes it has been associated with our water, and we can test for those. So we do test for those. And the ozone trailer attacks those compounds. And then, of course, getting the sludge, which has those compounds, out of South Reservoir is the biggest and best way for us to improve the impact to taste and odor. So we're pretty high on getting the sludge out and the ozone treating the sludge that currently exists in there.
I personally want to thank you guys because I think the project is very complex. And I think average people don't know the complexity of the situation. But I do have a suggestion, just something to ponder about. As these sludges you guys are getting exposed, it has different microbiome existence and it has different compounds that is just gathered for a long time. So that's something as a resident I noticed myself is that the quality of the water, I mean, the odor and all of that is one thing, and everybody's is in the eye of the holder, right? Everybody's what they used to. So it's such a complex data to collect and analyze to begin with. And I totally agree with you. But I highly recommend to maybe have some sort of data that actually shows the effect of the water on live organisms, like plants. That's something I recognize in my own house, that when I water certain time, my plants are not doing well, especially if you're working with something that is small, like a sprouting, and I noticed that I had to switch water in them. I don't drink the water, but I noticed that I have to switch the watering to a distilled water, clean water, otherwise they die. So that tells me there's something is in there that is not looked for, but I also know that this has cycles because it's not always like that. So I think if we as a community actually invest in that, it might be a good data that it helps because it's about discovering it, not ignoring it, correct? Yeah. And it's just like for the length of time I've been living in Englewood, I have noticed that cycle comes and goes. It got better, definitely got better. And so I don't know what, I think it's related to all that sludge. So I'm personally very, very excited about seeing that it's going to get improved with the project. And I'm very excited about that myself. And I also want to emphasize on the fact that it's not lack of your attention to it. It's just a big project that it needs to be addressed slowly. And I want you to know that I recognize that. It's not coming. It's just a suggestion. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to ask another question about that. Is it possible that even if the water gets much better taste at the plant, what about the delivery system? I mean, how many places do we test in the city? Is there enough places? I mean, we took some friends to a restaurant on Sunday, and when they're from outside of Englewood, they do not like the water. I don't drink the water either, but how do we know that there couldn't be an issue in the delivery system also?
So as far as our delivery system, it is an aged system. It is an older system. There's also areas in town where the system is not fully connected to where it's looped in. So what we do with those parts of the system is when we get calls, we get those calls is to respond to those. In the past, someone would call, hey, the water has a taste to it today. I think the previous answer years ago was, yeah, we're working on it kind of thing. Now our response is, what's your address? Where are you at? We would like, if you'd like us to come and look at the system, look at your pipes, look at your system, and kind of just get a determination as to what could cause this. And then we flush the system. We flush it annually. We also flush it upon request if someone has an issue. And then we look at these areas in the distribution system and kind of determine this is the area that needs to be flushed more frequently because it's not interconnected. As far as our sample taking, we take samples kind of per request. If a customer has an issue, we'll say, where are you at? We'll come sample. We'll help try to figure out what this is. And then also, we take samples every month according to the state. We're required to. And that's up to 60 samples a month that we have to take. for the state. But we also take samples. If someone calls us, we're going to respond to that. We're not going to say, yeah, sometimes the water may have this or that. We're going to say, where are you at? Let us see if we can help identify that. And we really like to respond, because that's the best I can do right now today, is to hear that customer, respond to that customer, and see if there's some kind of short-term solution that goes along with all the long-term solutions that we're trying to provide right now.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Sarah? All right, did I get a motion for item 6D as written?
So moved. Second.
Wonderful. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. 7 for old business, we don't have any. We'll move on to staff's choice. And I'm going to guess Sarah again.
So actually, this was an item that we were going to have Vicky present on, but we will delay and push it to next month, just to talk about some options that the board may consider for certain governance purposes. So we will push till next month and bring that back.
Wonderful. And moving on to 9, board members' choice. Is there anything any board member would like to raise tonight? Right, sounds like not. Then with that, thank you all for your time tonight, and we stand adjourned. Good evening.
Thank you, everyone.